Let us begin with prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 4, Appearance of Sri Narada. Text 5. Drushtvanuyatam Rishimatmajam Apyanangam Drushtvanuyantam Rishimatmajam Apyanagnam Devyo Hriya Paridadhurna Sutasya Chitram Tadvikshya Prachati Manau Jagadustavasti Stri Pumbhidanatu Sutasya Vivikta Drishte. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is text 5. Sri Shaunaka Rishi continued. While Sri Vyasadeva was following his son, beautiful young damsels who were bathing naked covered their bodies with cloth, although Sri Vyasadeva himself was not naked. But they had not done so when his son had passed. The sage inquired about this, and the young ladies replied that his son was purified, and when looking at them made no distinction between male and female, but the sage made such distinctions. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita 5.18, it is said that a learned sage looks equally on a learned and gentle Brahmana, a Chandala or a dog-eater, a dog or a cow due to his spiritual vision. Srila Shukadeva Goswami attained that stage. Thus he did not see a male or female. He saw all living entities in different dresses. The ladies who were bathing could understand the mind of a man simply by studying his demeanor, just as by looking at a child one can understand how innocent he is. Shukadev Goswami was a young boy, 16 years old, and therefore all the parts of his body were developed. He was naked also, and so were the ladies. But because Shukadev Goswami was transcendental to sex relations, he appeared very innocent. The ladies, by their special qualifications, could sense this at once, and therefore they were not very concerned about him. But when his father passed, the ladies quickly dressed the ladies were exactly like his children or grandchildren, yet they reacted to the presence of Vyasadeva according to the social custom, because Srila Vyasadeva played the part of a householder. A householder has to distinguish between a male and female, otherwise he cannot be a householder. One should therefore attempt to know the distinction between spirit soul without any attachment for male and female. As long as such distinction is there, one should not try to become a sannyāsī like Shukadev Goswami. At least theoretically, one must be convinced that a living entity is neither male nor female. The outward dress is made of matter by material nature to attract the opposite sex and thus keep one entangled in material existence. A liberated soul is above this perverted distinction. He does not distinguish between one living being and another. For him, they are all one and the same spirit. The perfection of this spiritual vision is the liberated stage, and Srila Shukadev Goswami attained that stage. Srila Vyasadeva was also in the transcendental stage, but because he was in the householder's life, he did not pretend to be a liberated soul as a matter of custom. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. So we have discussed about the birth of Srila Shukadev Goswami in the second chapter, in one of the verses where Suta Goswami offers prayers to Shukadev Goswami. There we have discussed uh, about Shukadev Goswami's birth. So Shukadev Goswami was within the womb of his mother, the wife of Vyasadeva, and until 16 years he was within the womb of his mother. He did not want to come out of his mother's womb, fearing that as soon as he comes out of his mother's womb, he will be overpowered by Maya and he will become entangled in material affairs. So that is the reason why he was within the womb of his mother until 16 years. At that time, Vyasadeva became very, very disturbed, seeing his wife's struggle to carry that child within the womb. Therefore, he personally called Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna personally came from Dwaraka. And only after Lord Krishna personally came and assured to the child in the womb, that is to Shukadev Goswami, saying that, do not worry, my Maya will not disturb you. Lord Krishna personally assured Shukadev Goswami while he was in the womb of his mother. Only after hearing to this assurance, Shukadeva agreed to come out of the womb of his mother. And as soon as he was born, as soon as he came out of his mother's womb, uh, he was naked and he started walking towards the forest. And Vyasadeva, his great father, followed him, calling out his name. Oh, my boy, please stop. At least let me perform the Upanayana and other samskaras for you. So please don't go away. Like this, Vyasadeva was calling out with great affection. But Shukadev Goswami, he did not turn back because he was a liberated soul and he was fully fixed up in spiritual realization, as we have discussed in yesterday's verse also. Shaunaka Rishi had mentioned about the qualifications of Shukadev Goswami. He was Mahayogi, Samadrik, Nirvikalpakaha. We have discussed all these things yesterday. And he was Ekanta Matihi, Unnidro Gudha Mudho Iveyate. He appeared like a foolish person from the external point of view, but actually he was a great yogi, a great devotee. He was a liberated soul, fully fixed up in the impersonal conception of the absolute truth. So, Shukadev Goswami, 16-year-old boy, he is just walking in the forest, and from behind his father Vyasadeva is following him. And when they're walking like this, they come across a lake in which some young girls were taking bath without any clothes on their bodies. And at that time, what happened? What was the response of Shukadev Goswami and what was the response of Vyasadeva? The difference between their responses as observed by the girls themselves. That is what is reported in this shloka. So here it says, Drishtvanuyantam, Drishtva, by seeing, Anuyantam, following, uh, Rishim, the sage, Vyasadeva, Atmajam, his son, Atmajam, Ja means to take birth, Atmajam means to take birth from one's own body. That is the son. The son is called Atmajam. So here it is referring to Shukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva. Api anagnam, api, in spite of, anagnam, not being naked. Vyasadeva was not naked, but his son Shukadev Goswami was naked, right? So, drishtva, so he, the when Vyasadeva was following that way, and Devyaha, the beautiful damsels, the young girls, who were all taking bath in the lake there, Hriya, out of shyness, Paridadhuhu, they immediately covered their bodies with cloth when Vyasadeva walked that way. Even though Vyasadeva himself was clothed, whereas his son Shukadev Goswami had not worn any clothes. But when Shukadev Goswami passed through that way, the damsels who were taking bath, they did not bother to cover their bodies. Whereas when Vyasadeva walked that way, immediately out of shyness, all the women, they covered their bodies. Na sutasya, not when the sun passed through that way. Chitram, astonishing. This was indeed astonishing to Vyasadeva. Tatvikshya, by seeing that, Pruchati, the sage asked the women who were taking bath, my son just now passed through this way and he was completely naked. And when he passed through, you did not bother to cover your bodies. But now, when I am passing through this place, immediately you are covering your bodies. What is the reason for this? The sage asked, Munau and Jagaduhu, they replied, the women replied to the sage in this way, Tava asti, Tava means your, asti, there are, Stri pum bhida. Stri pum means male and female, bhida means differences. O sage, in your mind, by your glance, we could make out that you make a distinction between a female body and a male body. So you have this kind of a distinction in your vision that we could make out. Whereas, natu sutasya, but in your son there was no such distinction. When we saw how he glanced upon us, we could make out immediately that he did not have any distinction between a male body and a female body. Why? Because he was vivikta drishtahe. He had a completely purified vision. Your son has a completely purified vision. That is because already in the previous shloka, this word has been used to describe Shukadev Goswami. Samadruk, he had an equal vision. Pandita, Krishna also says this in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. A really learned person, a liberated soul, his drishti, his vision will be samaha, it will be equal. Because he understands that whether it is a male body or a female body, both these bodies are simply manufactured by Maya, by material energy. These bodies are not the real identities of those personalities. So a liberated soul, he does not go by the body, right? So that is called Vivikta Drishtahe. So the damsels replied to Vyasadeva that your son has Vivikta Drishtahe. His vision is completely purified, and he did not make any distinction between male and female bodies. But the sage, but yourself, you make such distinctions. Therefore, immediately we had to actually cover our bodies. Now, from this verse, a few interesting things Prabhupada explains. The first thing is Shukadev Goswami, this verse proves Shukadev Goswami's exalted position, right? He is a liberated soul by birth, right? So the ladies could understand what kind of consciousness a person has while looking at them. Sometimes we can make out when people look, by their looks we can actually make out what is their thinking, what is their demeanor, what is their approach, right? Sometimes we can make out bad looks, good looks, bad touch, good touch. We can make out all these things. Now, according to the estimation of the ladies who were taking bath, Shukadev Goswami's vision when he was glancing at them was as innocent as a child, right? So why Prabhupada is explaining here? Because Shukadev Goswami was transcendental to sex relations. He appeared very innocent. So in our material bodily concept of life, since we think ourselves to be the body, to be our body, and this body has got a particular gender, and through this bodily concept of life, when we look at other people, we also assess the gender of the other person. If that person's gender, he or she belongs to the opposite gender, immediately there is a different kind of a vision or different kind of an approach. This is because of the bodily conception of life. Actually, the soul is neither male nor female, right? The soul is simply part and parcel of Krishna, eternal servant of Krishna. Unless we come to this particular uh, realization, unless we become free from this bodily conception of life, it is not possible to actually become free from the sex impulses. That is the lesson that we have to learn here, right? In the very first verse of the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Rupa Goswami is instructing all of us that this body is simply a pushing machine. It's a machine which creates urges, the body and the mind that we have got currently, the material body and mind. There are different kinds of urges or pushes that are created within this body mind system. Vacho vegam, manasa krodho vegam, jihva vegam, udaropastha vegam. Vega means urge, the urge to do something. So, vacho vegam, the first vega, the first urge is the urge of speaking. We all want to speak something. Then, vacho vegam, manasaha, manaso vegam, the urge of the mind. Mind keeps thinking, and the thoughts pushes into actions. That is manasa vegam. Then krodha vegam. Krodha means anger. Anger is also an urge created within the mind. So when we become angry, we speak in a certain way and we act in a certain way, which later we may regret. So that moment there is an urge because of the krodha, because of the anger. Then jihva vegam. Jihva means tongue. The tongue has got a vega to taste different kinds of uh, foodstuffs. So that's why people go to various kinds of restaurants and different kinds of dishes. They keep trying to satisfy the urge of the jihva, tongue. And then udara vegam. Udara means belly. So the belly wants to keep on, this gluttony. Gluttony means desire to eat more and more, right? Even though people know eating more is simply going to be a health hazard, it creates a lot of problems to the body, to the health. But still, the belly demands, so supply more. I want to eat more. So that's the urge, by urge of the udara. And then, so urge of the udara is first is hunger. right? Hunger. By hunger, when people are under the influence of hunger, they don't mind doing any illegal activity to satisfy their hunger, because that is the urge created by the hunger. That is called udara vega. And lastly, upastha vega. Upastha means the sexual urge. Because we are situated in the bodily platform, because we all identify ourselves with the body, therefore these six urges keep pushing us to act in a certain way. And because of the to satisfy these six urges, human beings engage in so many activities, right? There is a saying in Sanskrit, Udara nimittam bahut kruta vesham. To satisfy the hunger of the stomach, people take up so many professions, so many activities. Sometimes they also engage in illegal, illicit activities. So, etan vegan yo vishaheta dhiraha. So, Rupa Goswami is telling in the very first shloka of Nectar of Instruction, if you want to make progress in spiritual life, we must check the urges, these six urges of the body and the mind. Without checking the urges of the body and the mind, it is not possible for us to make any spiritual advancement. Now, here, from the response of the ladies, by looking at the by looking at Shukadev Goswami, we understand that Shukadev Goswami had actually transcended all the urges of the body and mind. So he did not make any distinction. He did not make any special attempt. Oh, to see those girls. Oh, they're all almost their bodies are all, not covered, and they're all in the water taking bath. Oh, he did not think that, oh, it's a nice thing to see. It's an enjoyable thing. No, he just walked away. He just walked away indifferently. He was not at all attracted, nor was he disgusted with the sight. Now, he was indifferent, right? Because he was fully situated on the spiritual platform. So that's a very important learning for us. So unless we elevate our consciousness from material platform to Krishna consciousness, it is not possible for us to develop pure vision. Now, a devotee must develop this chastity of vision. What is chastity of vision? I shall see only those things where it helps me to remember Krishna. If something is disconnected from Krishna, I shall not see it. This is called chastity of vision. Nowadays, we have these smartphones. Every now and then, we keep checking our smartphones every few minutes to check notifications, and we browse so many websites. Now, we should be very careful what I will see. Just because I have eyes doesn't mean I can see anything and everything, right? So we must be very careful what we are seeing, because what we see, that is, and if we think that this is very nice, enjoyable, then we fall trap. Example is given in the Bhagavatam itself in the sixth canto. Ajamila, who was coming from a very pious Brahmana family background, one day he saw a Shudra man embracing a prostitute in the forest. And as soon as he saw that, he became very much agitated with lusty desires. You see, he became agitated with lusty desires. And he desired to have the association of that woman. And later he became fully degraded. He fell down from his standard of devotional service, fully became engaged in materialistic activities. So, first time when we see some agitating, picture or agitating something around us, that first seeing may be accidental, but again when we try to see, that is actually not accidental, that is intentional. Accidentally we may see so many things. Okay, first, because what is happening around us in this world is not under our control. right? But we can control what we can see. Second time, if you again go to see the same thing, then it is not accidental anymore. Then that is intentional. So one should be very careful. One should be very, very careful. Whereas, so Shukadev Goswami, if you see, if you compare Ajamila and Shukadev Goswami, Ajamila was a sadhaka. A sadhaka, if he is not careful, he can become victimized by Maya. That's what we understand from Ajamila's pastime. Whereas Shukadev Goswami was already a liberated soul. Therefore, he was indifferent to the bodies of those women who were taking bath. So he did not get attracted to them. He straightaway simply walked through that place. So therefore, if we have to reach that particular stage, it is possible. It is possible by practice, by training our senses, our mind. It is possible. Like Ambarish Maharaj, teaches us in the 9th canto of Bhagavatam. It is said, Ambarish Maharaj fully engaged all of his senses in various aspects of devotional service to the Lord. He used his eyes only to see the beautifully decorated deities of the Lord in the temple. He used his ears only to hear about the glorification of the Lord and his pure devotees. Like this, he engaged all his senses. This is called bhakti. Bhakti means Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. When we engage all our senses in the service of the master of the senses, Rishikesha, Krishna, that practice is called as bhakti. So, when we nicely engage in bhakti, there is no way that the senses go astray. That is a very important learning that we get to know here. Now, the next question that can come in our mind is, Vyasadeva, he is an empowered incarnation of the Supreme Lord. And here it is said about Vyasadeva that the women could make out from the glances of Vyasadeva that his vision was not like his son Shukadev Goswami. So does it mean that Vyasadeva, he looked upon those women in a lusty mood? No, that is not the understanding. But here it is said, as Prabhupada is mentioning here, that Vyasadeva being a Grihastha, he had to make a distinction between a male and a female person. That's very important for a Grihastha, because a Grihastha has to deal with different kinds of people in the material world for his daily life, for his transactional purposes. So he cannot say that everybody is same. No, he has to give a differential treatment to different people, because this is only based on transactional activities in daily life, right? For example, when you come across a person, let's say you meet a bank manager. When you go to a bank for some transactional purpose, you want to meet the bank manager. So the way you're going to deal with the bank manager is totally different from how you're going to deal with a shop vendor when you go to purchase some groceries, isn't it? The kind of words and the kind of treatment, the kind of respect that you're going to give to different people is totally different. Now that is required on a Vyavaharik level. There are two levels, Vyavaharik level, Paramarthik level. Vyavaharik level means day-to-day transactional for the purpose of different transactions that we have with other people in our daily life. So, whereas Paramarthik means from the higher perspective, from the spiritual point of view, yes, a bank manager, in his body also spirit soul is present. A grocery vendor, he is also a spirit soul only, right? But they are differently placed in different situations and at different positions. Therefore, my interactions with them will be different for different purposes, right? That is very much required for a householder. Whereas Shukadev Goswami, since he was totally not interested in leading a household life and he was fully absorbed in his transcendental realization, he did not make any such distinction between a male and a female or a rich and a poor, and different gradations in the human society. So that's the difference. So Vyasadeva is definitely a liberated soul, but he is acting as a grihastha, an ideal grihastha in this situation. Whereas Shukadev Goswami is definitely a liberated person, but he is a transcendentalist. He is a sannyāsī. Sannyasi means one who is completely indifferent to material conventions. This is very, very important. Now, one more thing that Prabhupada is mentioning here is one should not try to become a sannyasi artificially, immaturely. That is what Vyasadeva is teaching us, right? We should not simply imitate Shukadev Goswami. Oh, I will see opposite gender in whatever situation. It's okay. I'll not get agitated. Now I have become a devotee. No, this is like taking a head on challenge with Maya. It's very, very risky. And it is also wrong to do that because we are still immature. And we should never become very confident that now I have conquered Maya. Now all these material things will not affect me because from so many years I am practicing bhakti. No. Same Bhagavatam is giving us an example, the case study of Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, great emperor, pure devotee of the Lord, gave up all his worldly riches, his positions, and all of that, went to the forest to do tapasya, but there he became attracted to a baby deer and he developed attachment to the baby deer. And slowly his daily tapasya was getting affected. He was becoming more and more attached to the deer, and finally, as we know, he gave up his body thinking about the deer, and because of which next life he became a deer. Right? So Bhagavatam is presenting the example of Bharat Maharaj to teach us that how careful a sadhaka must be during his practice of Krishna consciousness. One should not artificially think that now I have become immune to all attacks of Maya. Now Maya will not touch me. No, one should never be confident like that, isn't it? So, the whole point here is Shukadev Goswami is a liberated soul. One should not imitate Shukadev Goswami and immaturely try to become a so-called sannyasi like Shukadev Goswami. It is far better to remain in our own positions and very, very judiciously, very, very sincerely carry out the instructions given by Srila Prabhupada. And in that way, we can make progress in spiritual life. We should not try to pretend to be a liberated soul or try to imitate such liberated personalities. Let's go to the next shloka, text 6. Katham alakshitah pauraiः sampraptah kuru jangalan unmatta mukha jadavad vicharan gajasahvaye. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Shaunaka Rishi continued. Now these are all questions asked by Shaunaka Rishi to Suta Goswami. Shaunaka Rishi said, how was he, Srila Shukadev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, recognized by the citizens when he entered the city of Hastinapura, now Delhi, after wandering in the provinces of Kuru and Jangala, appearing like a madman, dumb and retarded? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The present city of Delhi was formerly known as Hastinapura because it was first established by King Hasti. Goswami Shukadeva, after leaving his paternal home, was roaming like a madman, and therefore it was very difficult for the citizens to recognize him in his exalted position. A sage is not, therefore, recognized by sight, but by hearing. One should approach a sadhu or great sage not to see, but to hear him. If one is not prepared to hear the words of a sadhu, there is no profit. Shukadev Goswami was a sadhu who could speak on the transcendental activities of the Lord. He did not satisfy the whims of ordinary citizens. He was recognized when he spoke on the subject of Bhagavatam, and he never attempted jugglery like a magician. Outwardly, he appeared to be a retarded, dumb madman, but in fact, he was the most elevated transcendental personality. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. So, here, Shaunaka Rishi is continuing to talk about Shukadeva Goswami. He's saying, Katham, how? Katham means how. Alakshita Pauraihi. Paura. Paura means one who lives in Pura. He's called Paura. Citizens. Paura means citizens. Alakshitaha means recognized. Samprapta Kuru Jangalan. Sampraptaha, reaching Kuru Jangala provinces. Unmatta, mad. Muka, dumb. Jadavat, stunted. Vicharan, roaming, wandering. Gajasahvaye means Hastinapura. So, the question is, Shaunaka Rishi is asking, in this way, when Shukadeva Goswami walked out of his paternal house, he approached the provinces of Kuru and Jangala. That is, he went to the city of Hastinapura. When he entered that city, how could the common people, the citizens of Hastinapura, recognize him? Because externally he was appearing, first of all, he was naked, and he was appearing like a madman, dumb, and he was jada. Jadavat means he was looking like a retarded person. So how were the common people, the Pura Janas of Hastinapura, how they were able to actually recognize him? So Prabhupada is explaining, to recognize a liberated soul, a pure devotee, it is not possible by sight, by seeing, but by hearing. So Prabhupada says we should see a pure devotee through our ears, not our eyes. Because our eyes can cheat us. Our eyes can only see material things, the external things. But when you hear to a person, then his real realizations, his knowledge will be revealed to us. So Prabhupada also quotes, Prabhupada also says, a foolish person remains undiscovered until he begins to talk. Right? When a person begins to talk, then we understand the depth of his knowledge. Then we understand whether he is a learned person or he is a foolish person. Because it's very easy to dress like a very intelligent, knowledgeable person, isn't it? Nowadays, in the present Kali Yuga, everybody focuses so much on external appearance that they should look very handsome or beautiful. They should wear first class branded clothes. And people also think that if somebody is wearing very impressive dress, branded clothes, then such a person must be really great person or somebody who is worthy following. But actually, Bhagavatam is teaching us that don't judge a person by his looks. Very, very important. Prabhupada is saying, one should approach a sadhu or a great sage not to see, but to hear him. So all spiritual subject matters have to be approached through the process of hearing only. Very, very important. Whether it is a sadhu or whether it is a holy dham of the Lord. When we go to holy dham like Vrindavan, if we want to think that I will see Vrindavan through my eyes and then I will understand everything, then we may get misled. Because our eyes will only see things which are not so good. Let's say, oh, muddy roads are there, and not so well maintained some places, some old temples are there. We think like that. No, but that's not the way to see. As Lord Brahma says, ours says, Shrutekshita Pantha. Pantha means our path, our process is what? Shrutekshita. means we have to see through the years by hearing process, by submissive hearing. We will be able to appreciate the glories of Vrindavan Dham or any holy place, not simply by external vision, by seeing. Same thing applies to a pure devotee like Shukadev Goswami. One should not think that externally he appears like a madman, a retarded person, a dumb person, therefore he must be really dumb. No, that's not the way, that's material calculation. We have to hear from pure devotee, and we see that same Shukadev Goswami spoke the entire Bhagavatam, and he enabled Parikshit Maharaj to attain the highest perfection. And it is because of this Bhagavatam, Shukhamukad Amrita Drava Samyutam, Pibata Bhagavatam. In the very beginning, Vyasadeva himself is saying, please drink this Bhagavatam, because already Bhagavatam is very nice. It is transcendentally nectarian, but it has become even more relishable because it is spoken by Shukadeva. Shukadeva, because he's a liberated personality and he has spoken his realization and he has explained to us the entire Bhagavatam, so it has become even more relishable. So we should actually hear from devotees, not try to see externally. That's a very important thing. So ordinary people of Hastinapura who were trying to see him from material point of view could have never actually have recognized the greatness of Shukadev Goswami, right? Because they would have only seen him from an outward material point of view, right? So when was he actually recognized? Prabhupada is saying here, Shukadev Goswami was recognized when he spoke on the subject of Bhagavatam. So the moment we think about Bhagavatam, immediately we think about Shukadev Goswami, the speaker of Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada is saying he never attempted jugglery like a magician. He never attempted jugglery, word jugglery. That's not the idea. He presented the most mature fruit of the Vedic wisdom tree, Bhagavatam, in a very interesting and a very attractive manner. And he did not compromise while presenting Bhagavatam just to impress the audience. So he is the most elevated personality. Text 7. Katham va pandave yasya rajarsher munina saha samvada samabhutata yatraisha satvati shrutihi. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Translation: Shaunaka Rishi continued to question Suta Goswami. How did it so happen that King Parikshit met this great sage, making it possible for this great transcendental essence of the Vedas, that is Bhagavatam, to be sung to him? Purport: Srimad Bhagavatam is stated here as the essence of the Vedas. It is not an imaginary story, as it is sometimes considered by unauthorized men. It is also called Shuka Samhita, or the Vedic hymn spoken by Sri Shukadev Goswami, the great liberated sage. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. So again, continuing his questions on behalf of all the sages of Naimisharanya, Shaunaka Rishi is asking, Katham means how, Katham va Pandaveyasya, the descendant of Maharaj Pandu, that is Parikshit Maharaj, or the descendant of the Pandavas, that is again referring to Maharaj Parikshit, that is Pandaveyasya. Katham va Pandaveyasya Rajarshehe Munina Saha. Rajarshi. So Rajarshi means saintly king, the king who was also a sage, that is Parikshit Maharaj. So Parikshit Maharaj is described here as Rajarshi. In the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is using this word Rajarshi when he talks about the parampara of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 4th chapter, in the very beginning, Evam parampara praptam imam Rajarshayo viduhu. A Raja, a king, has to actually be a Rishi also. Because a Raja, a king, should not be attached to the material position of sitting on the throne, but he must execute his duties with detachment, right? He should be detached from the uh, material positions and opulences. And for that, he needs transcendental knowledge. So, a king who has no transcendental knowledge, in other words, a king who is not a rishi or a rajarshi, is not actually qualified to rule the kingdom. This is the Vedic standard. So, here Maharaj Parikshit, we will get to know more about Maharaj Parikshit in the coming chapters about his wonderful qualities. But here, Shaunaka Rishi is Shaunaka Rishi is describing Maharaj Parikshit as Rajarshi because he was a saintly king. He was a pure devotee of the Lord. He was completely detached from the false conceptions of being a proprietor of the kingdom. He was simply ruling the kingdom on behalf of the Lord. Therefore, he is called Rajarshi here. Rajarsher Munina Saha. Munina, with the Muni. Here the Muni is Shukadev Goswami. Muni. Muni means generally a person who he is Mauna. He is called Muni. Mauna. Mauna means silent. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, uh, one of the qualities of a person in knowledge, Lord Krishna says that he has to be silent. Hmm? Silent means what? Not to indulge in material topics, prajalpa, discussion of materialistic topics. That is called silence. One must be silent, mm, means one must use his power of speech only to glorify Krishna, to chant his holy names, to study the scriptures, and to also explain the scriptural knowledge to others. Then such a person is called a Muni. But when it comes to material topics, uh, one must be silent. One must not indulge in Gramya Katha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed all his followers, Gramya Katha na sunibe. Don't hear to material sense gratificatory topics. Don't hear and don't speak also. Instead, use your power of speech to talk about Krishna. There is so much of Krishna Katha, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, so many scriptures we should study. So that is the meaning of a Muni. So Shukadev Goswami is exactly a Muni because he never indulged in talking about material topics, but he only spoke Bhagavatam. Right? So Katham va Pandaveyasya Rajarsher Munina Saha Samvadaha Sambhut means took place. Samvadaha means discussion. Tell me, how did the discussion between this great Rajarshi Maharaj Parikshit and the great Muni Shukadev Goswami, how did it happen? Sambhut. How did it take place? One side Maharaj Parikshit, he's the king of the whole world, he's the emperor of the whole world, living in palace, surrounded by all kinds of riches and opulence. On the other side is Shukadev Goswami, who was Nishkinchana, who did not have any material property. He was not at all attached to anything. He was fully detached. How did these two people meet? And how did this samvada, this conversation between them take place? Hmm? Yatra isha satvati shrutihi. Yatra, whereupon, esha, like this, satvati, transcendental, shrutihi, the essence of the Vedas. So, how did this discussion of the essence of all the Vedas, that is Srimad Bhagavatam, take place between the Rajarshi, Maharaj Parikshit, and the great sage Muni, Shukadev Goswami? How did this conversation take place? So, this is the curiosity of Shaunaka Rishi, right? So, Prabhupada is mentioning here that Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the essence of all the Vedas. It's not an imaginary story. Sometimes people think like this, oh, all these stories in the Puranas, they're all imaginary. It's not true. No, it is not like that. These are all authorized, these are all authentic, these are all essence of Vedic knowledge. right? Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayon moolanam. So we have heard this in the first chapter of the first canto of Bhagavatam. What is this Bhagavatam speaking about? It is vastava vastu. So by studying Bhagavatam, we become conversant with the actual subject matter, that is Krishna. Everything else in the material world, it is only shadow, but the substance is Krishna. So Bhagavatam is speaking about the real Vastu, Vastava Vastu, the actual Vastu, the actual substance, the only substance. And Tapatrayon Moolanam, it is Shivadam. Shiva means auspicious. Shivadam. Just by hearing Bhagavatam, all auspiciousness will come about in a person's life. And Tapatraya Unmoolanam, the three miseries that are always disturbing us. Tapatraya. Tapa means heat or miseries. Trayaha means three. Three kinds of miseries all of us are suffering, isn't it? Miseries caused by our own body and mind, miseries caused by other living entities, and miseries caused by higher forces of nature. These three miseries are constantly tormenting us and bothering us and creating suffering for us. But Bhagavatam is saying if you study Bhagavatam, if you dedicate yourself to fully this transcendental knowledge, which is the essence of all the Vedic scriptures, Tapatraya Unmoolanam, these three miseries can be eradicated from your life, can be plucked out from the root. So that is the position of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken by Shukadev Goswami. And because it was spoken by Shukadev Goswami, it is also called as Shuka Samhita. Shuka Samhita, the Vedic scripture or Vedic hymn spoken by Shukadev Goswami, the great liberated sage. Srimad Bhagavatam is also called as Paramahamsa Samhita. It is actually meant for elevating a person to the most perfectional stage of liberated existence. By studying Bhagavatam, one can become a Paramahamsa. One can actually become very, very elevated and completely spiritually realized, like Shukadev Goswami himself. Right? That is a position of Bhagavatam. Text 8. Sagodohana matram hi gruheshu gruhamedhinam avekshate mahabhagastirthi kurvam stadashramam. Translation and purport by Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada. Shaunaka Rishi continued, he, Shukadev Goswami, was accustomed to stay at the door of a householder only long enough for a cow to be milked, and he did this just to sanctify the residence. Purport. Shukadev Goswami met Emperor Parikshit and explained the text of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was not accustomed to stay at any householder's residence for more than half an hour at that time of milking the cow, and he would just take alms from the fortunate householder. That was to sanctify the residence by his auspicious presence. Therefore, Shukadev Goswami is an ideal preacher established in the transcendental position. From his activities, those who are in the renounced order of life and dedicated to the mission of preaching the message of Godhead should learn that they have no business with householders, save and except to enlighten them in transcendental knowledge. Such asking for alms from the householder should be for the purpose of sanctifying his house, his home. One who is in the renounced order of life should not be allured by the glamour of the householder's worldly possessions and thus become subservient to worldly men. For one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport. So, Shaunaka Rishi is saying, how did this personality, Shukadev Goswami, meet Maharaj Parikshit? Because Shukadev Goswami does not stay in a householder's house for a long time. That is what he's saying here in the shloka. Sago dohana matram hi, go dohana. milking the cow. Go dohana. Dohana means to milk the cow. Go dohana matram means only for the time duration that is required to milk a cow. That is called go dohana matram. That means it's not a very long period of time. So Shukadev Goswami would go to different householders' houses. He would go to their houses, visiting their houses uh, for begging, because a sannyasi has to beg, right? A sannyasi cannot have a fixed source of income. Then he's not called a sannyasi. Sannyasi should simply depend on the arrangements of the Lord. So such sannyasis as Shukadev Goswami, even if they go to the griha, the houses of the grihamedhi, so grihamedhi refers to the householders here. Actually, the word grihamedhi means one who has entered householder life, family life, just for the sake of material enjoyment. Such a person is called grihamedhi. An opposite of grihamedhi is grihastha. Grihastha means a devotee who enters household life for the sake of advancing in spiritual life. So both are different. Both may have the same family situations, but a grihamedhi, he's very clear that I want to simply enjoy and maximize my sense gratification. That is why I have got married. Whereas a grihastha means a devotee who has actually taken permission from his spiritual master and entered grihastha life, householder life, for the sake of spiritual advancement. He is called a grihastha. So Shukadev Goswami, even though he would visit such grihamedhi's houses, but he would not stay there for a long time. He would go there on the plea of begging, but actually that was not the real reason why he was going. An elevated soul like Shukadev Goswami will be personally provided by the Lord himself. So why should he even go and beg? But actually he would go out of his compassion. Avekshate mahabhagaha. Avekshana means to wait. He would not wait for more than one godohana. He would not wait for more than time duration required to milk one cow. And he is Mahabhaga, the most fortunate. Why is he most fortunate? Because he has attained Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And why does he go there and wait even for that small duration of time? Tirthi kurvams tadashramam. Tadashramam means the residence of that grihamedhi. Tirthi kurvan. He would actually go there to convert that householders, that home, into a pilgrimage place. In the same Bhagavatam, we will see Yudhishthir Maharaj glorifying Vidura, saying that, O Vidura, you are a pure devotee of the Lord, and you are a pure devotee. Wherever he goes, he converts that place into a Tirtha Kshetra. Tirthi kurvanti tirthanam. Why? Because you're always carrying Krishna within your heart. And wherever you go and you chant the holy names, you invoke the presence of the Lord there, and that place becomes a Tirtha Kshetra. So Shukadev Goswami would go to these householders' homes to purify their homes. That is why sannyāsīs are also referred to as Tirtha. Tirtha means he is himself a place of pilgrimage, because Krishna is always living within his heart, right? And Lord Krishna is called Tirtha Pada. He at whose feet all the places of residence all the places of pilgrimage take shelter. He is called Tirtha Pada. So here Shukadev Goswami would stay or would go to these different grihamedhi's houses just to sanctify their places by his presence. And Prabhupada is also saying a sannyasi should not get attached to the different glamours of the householders' worldly possessions. A sannyasi should go only to preach to these householders. A sannyasi should go, enlighten them about Krishna Katha, and ask alms from them to purify them. It's a seva opportunity that a sannyasi extends on behalf of Krishna to the materialistic householder so that they can use their hard earned money in the service of the Lord. So, actually, when a devotee uh, asks a materialistic person or a grihastha to give some donation for the Lord's service, it is actually a favor that the donor gets. It's a favor, it's a service opportunity. Hmm. So, Shukadev Goswami was such elevated personality in the renounced order of life, and he was not allured by the householder's worldly possessions. He had not become subservient to the worldly man. Generally, whenever we receive some favor from others, we become obligated to them. Oh, this person has given such a favor, so we become obligated, right? But Shukadev Goswami did not consider himself to be subservient to the worldly men. In the Mahabharata, you will see various examples like Karna, for instance, or Dronacharya also. Because both of them received material favors from Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, they became Arthadasa. They became servant of wealth. So even though they knew that Duryodhana was on the wrong side, they did not have enough moral mm, confidence to oppose and say that Duryodhana, you're wrong, because they felt themselves to be obligated to all the material favors that they had received. So therefore, a sannyasi should never become arthadasa, hmm, because even when sannyasi asks for a donation, he's not using it for himself. He's taking the complete money given by the donor and engaging it in Krishna's service. So in that way, it is a favor that a devotee or a sannyasi does to the attached householder by engaging his wealth in the Lord's service. So one should never become subservient to the worldly men. Another important thing Prabhupada is quoting in the last sentence of this purport: for one who is in the renounced order of life, this is much more dangerous than drinking poison and committing suicide. Actually, from where is this coming? Actually, Prabhupada this is coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction. Nishkinchanasya bhagavad bhajanonmukhasya param param jigamishor bhavasagarasya. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, for a person who wants to make spiritual advancement and cross the ocean of material existence, for such a person, sandarshanam yoshitam Vishayinam atha yoshinam va ha hanta hanta vishabhakshanam apyasadhu. For a devotee who wants to make spiritual advancement and cross the ocean of material existence, associating with worldly minded people is more abominable than willingly drinking poison. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said when he was asked to meet Maharaj Prataparudra. Even though Maharaj Prataparudra was a pure devotee of the Lord, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, through this incident, he is teaching all of us how careful a devotee of the Lord should be when it comes to interaction with materialistic people. So here, Shukadev Goswami was also such a very, very diligent personality. He would just go to the householder's home, just to uh, enlighten them in transcendental knowledge, stay for a very short time, go dohana matram. And so Shaunaka Rishi's question is, that is the case, then how did the 7-day conversation happen with Maharaj Parikshit? Hmm? Shukadev Goswami would not spend so much time with any uh, householder like that. But with this particular personality, Parikshit Maharaj, he spoke for 7 days and nights continuously, Bhagavata. How did it happen? Please explain to me. Like that, Shaunaka Rishi is asking Suta Goswami. So we will continue in the next session and discuss more what happened next. Actually, there are many more questions that Shaunak Rishi is asking. These are all very interesting questions and also amazing purports by Srila Prabhupada for all these verses. So, one request to all of you is please go through these purports once again so that the points that we are discussing can become reinforced and reading becomes a very interesting activity, enjoyable activity, um, especially because Prabhupada writes very nicely upon all these verses. It may be possible that all the points mentioned in Prabhupada's purports we may not be discussing. Therefore, I request you to please spend time. Whatever verses we are discussing, if that day only, if you can go through, or the next day, if you can go through all the purports, it will be very good. And also, we are having these sessions every day. Every day, I may not be sending personal messages to all of you, inviting you to come and take part in the session. So, I request you all to join the WhatsApp channel, Daily Srimad Bhagavatam. There, every day I'll post updates about when is the session and what time. Generally, on Fridays, session will be at 6:30, and on other days, it will be at 8 o'clock. The links will be posted in the WhatsApp channel, Daily Srimad Bhagavatam. So you can inform this to the other devotees also who may not be there today so that everybody is updated. So we'll close here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय विश्व गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.